Ready to get this going here?
Let's do it.
Let me do the sharing real quick before I actually kick the thing here. See, I just told you in the pre-show. I always forget that I have to share this stuff from the Second City Gridiron Twitter feed to our Windy City Gridiron Twitter feed because branding. Got to make sure I got that going on, and then we got the Facebook thing. Boom. There's one. Let's see if I can figure this out. Are you a big Facebook guy at all?
I used to be. I mean, at this point, it's pretty much just used to look at Disney blogs and stuff.
So you're into the Disney stuff? What's up with that?
I don't know what it is. It just goes back to when I was a kid. I would be sick. I had this little like TV that had the VHS thing only, really. So my mom would pop that in my room with a stack of VHSs instead of watching, Price
You're
is
not
Right.
old enough for VHSs, are you?
Yeah, I'm 31, man.
That's still the DVD era.
I was
I
at
guess
the
that's right.
tail end, I guess, then of the VHS because DVDs came in, but I just remember the stack of the VHSs, watching Pinocchio, Lion King, and it's just I don't know. It's my happy place. I try to go once a year.
Yeah, we have my three oldest are 30s, so yeah. I mean, when they were younger, they were VHS kids, and we had stacks and stacks and stacks, and turned into DVDs. But yeah, they were the same way with the. My wife was obsessed, like because back then you couldn't get the VHS Disneys except for like once every now and again. So she was obsessed. Whenever she saw one, she had to buy it.
Yep.
And then now it's like, I think they're just in the garage somewhere piled up. So, but all right, let's get this rolling here. We'll do the podcast.
No one mind my invisible cup, by the way.
I like that, man. That's sweet. One day I'll have a green screen. I'll be fancy like you guys. So, here we go. What is happening, Chicago Bears fans? This is T Formation Conversation. I am your host, Lester Wiltfong. And as it has been this entire 2022 Bears season, the doctor is in. We are joined by Dr. Mason West. Mason, how's it going, my friend?
Not bad at all. As you said a little earlier, where else would you rather be on a Friday night than right here talking some Bears?
It's such a weird, like I was telling you before, like I would do the show before myself. Like I would jump in, I would get off work, I would do here, record a really quick stuff because we didn't have no video back, before. This is the first year we had really incorporating the video. So we got to be official, So I'm like, well, shit, I got an actual video channel now. I just can't have my head on there. Let's find someone. And then we've been talking for a long time in that chat. Mm-hmm. And I'm like, this makes so much sense. It's like sometimes things just come together in my brain. Like, this is going to work.
Just
and
clicks.
It's been awesome. Yeah. And then of course you have your own show now on Thursdays at 5:00 Central.
Yep.
Bare Bones, you and Danny Meehan. You kind of do the similar to what we do with the injury, but you guys go into more in depth in a preview, fantasy football stuff. You guys talk some gambling. You guys talk some picks. You guys make your NFL picks. So, that's a fun show. And of course, you have all the puns going on there.
I nailed my Colts pick yesterday. I mean, the game's horrendous, but nailed the pick. So that's all that mattered.
That game was awful. It was just like, and then of course the Bears are next Thursday. Bears and Commanders.
Yeah.
What are the odds that game is just like the reverse? Like it's going to be like a 40-35 game or something.
I mean, I'd be down for that, absolutely. But don't get me wrong. If I'm putting my money on it, I think we're probably seeing another like 12-9 game somehow.
Probably. All right. Well, let's jump into this. There's some injury, a really small injury report this week, but there was some big injury news earlier in the week, and that is Cody Whitehair, Chicago's starting left guard, went to injured reserve. They talked about it's not going to be serious, so we're assuming it's going to be the 4-game, the short-term designation. And on your show last night, Bare Bones, you actually talked about, you found the actual play, and you showed the clip on your show last night of the knee injury, and you're a little surprised that, it wasn't more severe than it was?
Yeah, a bit. I mean, it was definitely a pretty extensive injury. If you actually watch the clip, and you can go and check it out, like I said, like Lester said, I broke it down a bit more, and there's video involved, so you can actually see what happened. We talked also about how the all-22 at Soldier Field is horrendous, it's not exactly the cleanest video. But when you have the defender fall and offensive lineman for that matter fall into Cody Whitehair like they did, right, collapsing down into the back right side of that right leg, you often have something a little more big come into play. I mean, a good example is David Montgomery, right? I mean, David Montgomery got rolled up on essentially. He had that knee ankle that became just an ankle, especially when you have someone as large as Cody Whitehair did falling onto you. Adam Johns at The Athletic had mentioned that he was seen walking out with a straight leg brace, which usually you see that after like an ACL reconstruction, just to stabilize the entire knee. So that's where my mind went right to. Okay, I'm thinking MCL just because of the ankle that the player fell into, Matt. And also I'm thinking a little bit of either ACL or PCL, more likely ACL, just because when you have that force coming from the back to the front, that anterior cruciate ligament helps prevent that lower leg bone, the tibia, from moving forward. It'd be PCL if it was more the other direction. And we talked about how more likely it's called dashboard injury. So if you have your legs up on the dashboard, you get in a car accident, shoves that tibia backwards. And Danny was great. Talked a bit about him seeing it on scene as a firefighter. So that was pretty cool to have. But so usually that's why you're starting to think the inner ligaments there for that ACL when you have that straight leg brace. And you need it, even if it was a grade 2, grade 3, that's where you need at least those 4 weeks. And then everyone's a little different, could reach into that 5-6 week range, but I'd lean closer to the bottom 4 than that upper 6-7.
So as we're seeing now with a good transition, the N'Keal Harry injury, his 4-week IR stint was over. So the Bears actually opened up his 3-week practice window. So you're saying with the Cody Whitehair injury, you're guessing about 4 weeks after that he'll be brought to the practice field. They'll work him out for a week or two, and then he'll be good to go. If not sooner than that.
That's what I would think. When you think about if it is in fact like a more of that ACL thought process, more or MCL. Offensive linemen don't need as much of that rotary stability, right? Those ligaments are very important if you're going to be doing a lot of cutting, hence why a wide receiver, why a running back would need a little bit more time than a lineman would. So you'd see Cody Whitehair out there. He's going to have that big bulky knee brace on just to help with the stability. And especially being a guard even too. I mean, it's very linear in that way. I mean, obviously, yes, you're going to have to do pulls and things like that. It's just not quite as robust as even like a tackle might have to be with how you have to drop back that outer foot in order to gain ground.
All right, let's talk a little bit about Harry. So his practice one was open. There was a clip on social media, I think on Wednesday, showing him going through some drills, and he looks, to the fan's eye, he looks pretty good. He's running around out there. So this was actually a couple days ago. It was actually 8 weeks. And when you actually tweeted out about the injury the first time, you said it's probably about an 8-week injury. So kudos there. So 8 weeks on the dot a couple days ago. They're not going to play him. It was talked about today at the press conference. They said he will not be activated for the game against the Vikings. So technically the Bears have an open roster spot. They may make a move on Saturday. If they do, I will update the site at Windy City Gridiron. Make sure you guys check that out because I'll update that. I'm not going to update the podcast because it's in the can. It's done. So about Harry, his 8 weeks are up. He's on the practice field. Looked good. They're not going to play him this week. So do you think that you think he'll take the full 3 weeks, or think he'll be back possibly for the next game against the Washington Commanders?
I am leaning towards a return against the Washington Commanders. Like I said, it's one of those weeks where what do you get out of getting Harry out there this week? It's just the Vikings matchup is a tough one. Not even just from the offensive side, as we've seen, it hasn't been great offensively. Yes, they need the firepower, but defensively, right? It's not. You got Justin Jefferson and Adam Thielen going against a pretty rough secondary right now, as it's been the last couple of weeks. So what are you getting by rushing? If you wait that extra week, get some actual, because when you're rehabbing, you're not going through all the drills that you would normally, right? So he still needs to get up to speed. Getting him out there for 1-2 snaps is not going to do much. You'll let him get, some of that run with the Commanders, get more quickly to full speed. And then all of a sudden, the following week, you have that Patriots game. And I think that's when it's full bore. Hey, let's try to prove that the Patriots maybe missed on something, didn't handle me right. So, yeah, I'd lean closer to a Commander's appearance for Harry.
You would imagine he really wants to stick it to the Patriots as much as possible. He's first round draft pick. They kind of didn't really play him much. But they don't really feature like a one guy, and he thought he'd be the guy, and it never worked out for him in New England. And of course, he's in Chicago now. He had the injury, so that'd be a great storybook thing here if he ramps up against Washington, he makes his big time game against the Patriots and goes for 7-8 catches, 100 and just imagine
that little bit of a pipe dream, but maybe.
All right, crazy. All right, let's jump in now to the actual injury report, and I got it. Where the hell did it go? Am I going to graphics here? Oh, I'm over here. See, man, I'm used to JB producing us on Barren Balanced. Me having to run the board is just, so complicated. Where are we at? Oh, see, I did it for you guys. All right, beautiful. So Bears, man, 3 guys. Last week they were missing, I think, 4 starters. They had like 9 guys on the report. This week Ryan Griffin's back, tight end. That's going to help, obviously, the passing game. Okay, maybe not, but they got some guys here. David Montgomery, what the hell's going on with this guy? He is a mutant, correct? He comes back from injuries.
Pretty sure that he's got either cyborg, something going on there, or like you said, he's got some alien DNA going on, because over and over and over again he comes back faster than he's really supposed to. And if you actually talk to some of his teammates and some of his coaches back at Iowa State, they said the exact same thing. I mean, he was coming back from stuff weeks ahead of schedule. I don't necessarily get it. Some guys are just built different. He's one of them. I originally said this was like a 6-week injury.
Yeah.
And it looks like it. And when you have a guy leave the way that he did, that's usually what it is. The fact that he missed as little time as he did and is coming back is pretty nuts. Do I think it's going to be full David Montgomery? Not necessarily. I mean, you should be splitting the load with Herbert. I mean, a good example is look at the Packers. They do a very good job of splitting between A.J. Dillon and Aaron Jones, and both benefit from it because they both do something a little different. So I'd expect more of a timeshare between the two than maybe even we saw before the Montgomery injury. And it's going to be huge to have Montgomery back, whether it's just what he does as a leader within the game or in his pass protection, because that's something that Herbert still struggles with.
Yeah, that's a good point. I saw a tweet, I'm not sure if it was earlier this week or might have been last week, that showed the top pass blocking running backs. And David Montgomery was, I think, top 5. Khalil Herbert was like in the 90s. So it's a stark difference in the way those guys can attack linebackers when they're coming in. It's, part of it is Khalil Herbert's a little smaller. Part of it is just a leverage thing. Part of it just maybe that's just not his game. I mean, he's just not that. So the one thing you don't want to see happen with Chicago is you don't want to see him tip their hand. If a guy like Herbert's in, okay, this is the run. We saw that a couple of years ago with Nagy and his usage of Tariq Cohen.
Mm-hmm.
They would always tip what he wants to do. So hopefully we don't see that with this regime. Luke Getsy should be a little smarter than what we saw before. You can work those guys in, because Khalil Herbert, whether he's pass blocking or not, he's shown he can catch the screen. He can do some stuff out there. Maybe just don't keep him in. Maybe keep Kmet in or Griffin or Wesco, one of these other tight ends, have them come in if you want an extra blocker. Once in a while, it could be Herbert, but you got to see what's going on there. But it's a key for the passing offense, which we're going to see click here at some point with Justin Fields. But he's questionable, David Montgomery, and Coach Flus today in the press conference said it looks pretty good, which is, again, like you were saying, you thought it'd be a much longer injury. And actually 2 weeks ago, you had that video too on your show, Bare Bones. You broke that down, you showed it, and it did. It looked bad. So I'm shocked he's questionable. I think he's going to play. What about you?
I'm leaning towards him playing. I mean, I'm not starting him in my fantasy league by any means, but if I'd say it's 70% chance that he starts.
Yeah, it's looking pretty good there. And then we have 2 doubtful Bears. Both these guys have not practiced in a couple of weeks. Jalen Johnson, cornerback, he's still out with that quad injury. Dane Cruikshank, safety, backup safety, special teamer, still out with that hamstring injury. Both players doubtful. Like I said, they've been missing a couple of weeks now, but both were limited to practice today. So that's obviously good for next week's. You can't see him playing this week, right?
And you always have to keep in mind what that bare minimum is to be considered limited. I mean, you could basically go through stretches with your team and it's like, oh, great, you were limited today. So now you're not really allowed to be a part of, even the media can't see what goes on past really the stretches and some of those individual drills. So we don't know exactly what they did or did not do. But Dane Cruikshank with that hamstring, 2 DNPs in a row, and then a limited, not looking great. And it's like, again, do you need him this week? No, you'd rather just let him be fully healed going into the next week's game. And then for Jalen Johnson, I mean, he had an interesting post on Instagram.
I saw
he
that.
Sounds like he's gonna play, but with, again, 2 DNPs, and even Jalen has been on the record saying, like, if this was like a playoff game, that he'd be playing. So he might be pushing more so to be playing than maybe the coaching staff is going to have him play. he's pretty much the antithesis of Montgomery at this point. 30% chance he plays. If all of a sudden he was active, I'm not going to be blown away surprised just because kind of who he is and what he's been saying. But to me, it's significantly more likely that they're going to give him one more week off.
So you're thinking he pulled something, strained something in his quad area. I mean, it's a little more with missed a couple weeks than just a bruise, right?
Yeah, something maybe like a quad contusion, and then like a bone bruise kind of a thing would be my guess. Maybe got a helmet or a shoulder pad to the thigh and just was affecting some of that deeper layers of the quad down in there. Grade 1-2 strain is also possible, just like it would be for the hamstring, but nothing crazy. I mean, if it was, he would have been IR'd. And the other thing too is this team has been very interesting with how they also handle the IR for the most part. I mean, there are some guys that they're willing to let just kind of play it out a little bit. Like Velus Jones was a perfect example. They were willing to just let him see, because they could have just IR'd him, right, and just like been done away with it. We wouldn't have had this conversation as long as we did. And same thing with some of these other players. You could have just put Jalen Johnson IR and it would have been more or less fine. But it seems like with especially some of these soft tissue injuries, they're letting it play out and seeing where they're at instead of just shutting guys down.
Yeah, I mean, this year they changed the rule. You're now allowed to bring back 8 guys on that short-term IR. I would like to see them. Does baseball still do the IR retroactive, where if a guy's missed a few games, you can put him on the IR, but it's back to where the game you missed? Is that something that they do in baseball still? I haven't followed baseball closely in a long time, but I think that'd be great for the NFL if a guy misses a week or two, and you realize, man, this injury's taking longer than we thought. He hasn't played anyway. Let's retroactively IR him 2 weeks ago, so that way he would only have 2 more weeks to go. Since he already missed his 2 weeks, I don't know. That's one of those things that I always like the roster, the back end roster building. I always think of these weird little quirks, but I think that would be nice if they do something like that, because it would help. Obviously, help teams because it's a 53-man roster. You got the practice squad. It will help you give a little more flexibility. And then again, it's about the player safety. And then it's one thing you mentioned there about Johnson. Maybe the coaches are holding him back a little bit. We talked about it a little bit with Tua. Sometimes the coaches have to do that. They have to say, hey, man, we don't want you to get hurt worse. We're going to shut you down one more week to be safe. And, I think that's good if a coaching staff can do that.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, if you're Eberflus, do you want Jalen Johnson out there, being able to guard Justin Jefferson? Of course you do.
Yes.
It's significantly better defense if you have him out there. But at the same time, they know what this year is. This year is a rebuild. It's not a retool. It's not I get it. You're 2-2, but let's not mince words here. So you got to sometimes protect the players from themselves, because they're going to do what they need to do to get out there. Going back to Dave Montgomery, perfect example. Contract year, right? He's looking to get paid, and if he were to stay out too long, that's going to hurt his bottom line. So these guys want to play.
So if there's no Jalen Johnson, then we're looking at Kyler Gordon, Kindle Vildor, obviously, Jalen Jones, who was sick earlier this week, but he's fine. He's not on the report anymore. Maybe a little Josh Blackwell, maybe a little Lamar Jackson, but you talked about the Viking receiving core, Thielen, Osborne, of course, Jefferson. That's a pretty good threesome, one of the better threesomes in the league. So they're probably going to gash the Bears if Johnson's out.
It's funny just because the Vikings could go either way, because the Bears are terrible against the run, so they could just go ham with Dalvin Cook, or really the secondary hasn't been great either, so they could just go nuts in the passing game. I don't really know which way I'm more concerned with, but at the end of the day, it's the matchups are so far not great.
Exactly what you said. They could do anything. I mean, the Bears. I mean, that's a good offense. I know we all like to make fun of Kirk Cousins a lot, but when Kirk Cousins plays good teams and like prime time, that's when he has issues. When he's playing a team like the Bears, he's generally pretty good. Bears defense is not the best right now. I mean, they could surprise. I mean, they have some players over there. You never know what could happen, but this could be a rough game. And let's real quick mention the Vikings injuries. They got 3 guys: Andrew Booth, corner; Jalen Naylor, wideout; Ben Elfleson, tight end, groin, all backups. So there's no issues from their report. They had a couple guys on there earlier this week. Smith and their cornerback, her name escapes me now, that are a couple starters.
Cameron Dantzler.
I knew you'd have that for me. They were on the report all week. They were limited, but they were taken off the report. So the Vikings are going to be at full strength offensively and defensively, going against the depleted Bears defense, which is not good even if they were full strength. And then, of course, the Justin Fields passing offense. What are the odds that Justin Fields builds off of the last week's game? You think you can see him taking advantage of? Because the Vikings defense, they are full strength, but it's a bad defense.
That's the thing. They barely beat. Okay, they're in London. London games are weird, and that's another thing too, right? They're coming back from London. Circadian rhythms are going to be all messed up, so that could always be affecting this team. But I mean, they barely beat a Andy Dalton-led team that didn't have Alvin Kamara, that didn't have Michael Thomas, and that barely won on a missed field goal that was a double doink. It wasn't great. Like, the Saints aren't good. Let's not mince words. So to answer your question, I think Justin can build off of that. I think he can continue to build trust with some of the receivers that he does have. And I think that, again, if you're just looking for him to progress, is he getting the ball out faster? Is he going for read 1, 2, 3, right? Is he able to adjust and not bail out of the pocket quite so quickly? And that's really going to also depend on the offensive line. Eberflus refuses to give us an inkling as to who's going to be starting on Sunday. So that's tough. So it really, I think it's a lot of trust. It boils down so heavily to that because there's not a lot to trust right now.
You mentioned the head coach talk about the interior of his offensive line today, and at his press conference, he was asked point blank, was he going to start the same three that he talked about starting, which is going to be Mustipher at center, Jenkins at right guard, Patrick at left guard. And he said that he wasn't sure quite now. Now, maybe it's gamesmanship. He's just trying to, put that out there for the Vikings. But he also said that they did work Lucas Patrick at center. Okay, that hand has got to be ready to go. I'm sure he can snap now. He was the backup center for the last 2 weeks, so that hand has to be good. Maybe they do go with Patrick at center. They let Jenkins, settle in the right guard, and then over at left guard, what do you got then? You got Ja'Tyre Carter, the rookie. Will they put 2 rookies on the left side? Michael Schofield, who they cut after having a horrendous preseason and brought back. Is he the guy you put a left? I mean, I know Sam Mustipher has struggled, but wouldn't Sam Mustipher still be your better option to play in that interior 3? Oh, it's so rough to say this. Just say it out loud. It makes me not nauseous.
So what would your starting line be currently as the people that you have available?
I mean, they have Riley Reef on the bench, who, to my knowledge, has only played tackle, right and left side. They've had a few weeks now. Maybe they're getting him ramped up to play some guard. I've always thought it was easier to go from right guard to right tackle, or right tackle to guard, or left tackle to guard, instead of going flipping sides. I always thought it was easier. But since he's shown the ability to flip sides, maybe he's at the point in his career where he can kick inside the guard. I don't know. I'm just nervous about Sam Mustipher because he had a really bad game. I talked about him earlier this year. He has had a better season than a year ago, but that was a low bar we're talking here. We're talking baby steps, small improvements. And then this last game, some of those sacks that he gave up, the protection issues, missing those double 8 gap blitzes, ultimately it does fall on the quarterback, but you're the center, man. You got to see that stuff. It's coming right at you. You're missing some of these things. I don't know, man. I mean, they have some interesting names on the practice squad. They have a draftable player, Kellen Diesch, who was with the Dolphins.
Yes.
I know a lot of Bears fans were high on him. They thought he'd be a guy that Bears could target in the draft. Zachary Thomas on the practice squad. I don't know. They may bring someone up just because they have Whitehair out. They may have to bring a guy up. But I don't know. I mean, it could be Carter's time. Maybe they go 2 rookies, say the hell with it. Let's see what happens. Then I would be fearful for Justin Fields.
Yeah, that might be a little rough. But I mean, at the same time, I think Braxton Jones has held his own. I think he's been better than people are giving him credit for. He's gotten bullied sometimes. Yes. He really has. But I guess, like you're saying, what's better, that or I mean, Schofield had one bad rep. Really, that was what at least did it for me. The one against Chris Jones, who's very good. Yeah. Chris Jones is so good. But it was a bad rep. I mean, that's like a hospital rep kind of thing. So your options aren't fantastic. And it's like, what do? The devil you know, the devil you don't.
Yeah, it's a rough situation, but who knows? I mean, at this point, I think, I don't know, maybe Schofield's your best. He has your most experience there. I I trust Schofield more than I trust Mustfer. Patrick's your center. He's got to be your center. You got to play him there.
I agree.
It's just real quick about Braxton Jones. I'm with you, man. I think he's had a much better year. The thing with offensive linemen is their mistakes get blown up because that's all you see. You don't see the 7 plays in a row where he did his job. All you see is the one play where he gave up the sack or gave up the pressure. His grade is not the best, but he's a rookie. He's learning. It's not like every pass rep is a bad rep. He has good technique, sometimes bad technique. Sometimes he's getting fooled by certain bull rushes. He's getting fooled by double moves, which happens. Borma on the right side, he's okay. I don't like him long-term there. He's got to improve a little better, but in interior, you hear a lot of quarterbacks say the interior pressure gets them worst, the most. That gets them quickly. It's on them so fast. You got to tighten it up. So I don't know. Do you have any final thoughts here before we get out of here? It's a nice quick show. Just 6 injuries.
Yeah, Sunday will be interesting, I think, because it'll be the best offense the Bears have faced, and the fact that I'm really interested. I hope Monty plays just because I'm really interested to see how he moves, especially after an injury like that, and it just makes them so much more not one-dimensional. Being able to have him in there really does change the face of your offense, and I think it's going to really help Justin a lot. And I think that's the biggest thing, making sure Justin is comfortable.
So are you going to pick the Bears this week?
Oh, heck no. I'll pick them to cover. So I think the last number I saw was 7.5. And so
it jumped. Yeah.
So I'll pick them to cover, but I'm not picking them to win this week.
I think I did the same thing. We put our official picks in through Tally set each week for the site. I know I went with the Vikings for the money line, but I think I may have went with the Bears to cover, but I would not be surprised if they don't, just because the Vikings are such a good offense and the Bears don't have a very good defense right now. So that's a very scary Viking team if they're clicking. So, but that's it. We're going to get out of here. Make sure you guys all follow Dr. Mason West at West Sports PT on Twitter. Follow me at Wiltfong JR. Follow Second City Gridiron. We're on Second City Gridiron on Twitter as well. We're also on Facebook. Of course, Windy City Gridiron. All over the place. We're going to have Making Monsters, Taylor and Dylan's show. They got pushed back this week. They actually had a chance to interview Jaquan Brisker's college coach or his high school coach. Man, I forget who it was. I know they interviewed someone who would coach Brisker, and that is going to be coming up early tomorrow morning or late tonight as soon as they get it cut up over to me. So stay tuned to the podcast channel for that. And the next video show will be The Gamblers Den. Check that out on Sunday morning at 10 a.m. But for Mason, for me, I'm out. Bear down, my friends.